too far along. Hi, my name is Danielle Coco, and I'm the marketing director at the Southern United States Trade Association. And we thank you so much for joining our webinar on exporting U.S. products, private label into South America. We're really excited to hear from our consultants, River Global, and the four countries that we will specifically be hearing about are Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Peru. So we will hear from Natalia Medina. Hi, Natalia.
Hi.
Hello. And Leo Silveira. They are part of the River Global team that works specifically with SUSTA. If you've done any of our events in South America or registered for a consultation, you will likely have met with either Natalia or Leo. And a few quick housekeeping things. Everybody is muted. We will just keep it that way to cut down on background noise. So if you have any questions or anything comes up throughout the webinar, just go ahead and write it either in the chat or the Q&A, and we will get to the questions after the webinar concludes. So Natalia and Leonardo, I will let you all take it from here.
Hi. Hello and welcome everyone. As Daniel mentioned, my name is Natalia Medina and I'm here with Leonardo Silveira. We are part of River Global and we proudly serve as a SUSTA consultant in South America. We are very glad to be here today to share with you key insights about private label opportunities in four South America's most dynamic markets: Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Peru. In today's session, we explore general market conditions in each country and the evolution of private label and what makes an increasingly strategic channel for UX exporters, including real success stories. Whether you're just beginning to explore South America or are already exploring, we hope this session gives you valuable tools and inspiration to take the next steps. Throughout the session, feel free to submit your question using the Q&A box here on Zoom, and we'll address them at the end of during our dedicated Q&A segment. So let's begin understanding the current retail landscape in each country, starting with Brazil. Okay, so Brazil is the largest economy and the most populated country in South America, a true continental market with over 125 million people. Brazil has a highly diverse consumer base shaped by regional differences in culture, income, and purchasing habits. From Sao Paulo and Rio to smaller cities in the north and the northeast, there is an ongoing expansion of modern retail formats across the country. The Brazilian food and beverage sector is one of the most dynamic in the region, driven by a strong middle classes, ongoing urbanization, and an increasing demand for convenient, packaged, and health-oriented products. Major supermarket chains such as GPA, Carrefour, Grupo Mateus, and Assaí dominate the retail landscape, while thousands of smaller independent stores and regional chains still play a key role in the local distribution. Brazil also has robust import structure, although exporters must navigate bureaucracy, labeling rules, and logistics. The approval processes, including product registration and labeling compliance, can be challenging, but not impossible with the right local partners. In short, Brazil represents a strategic and high potential market, especially for companies prepared and adapt to invest in local relationships. Now, let's take a look at Chile. It's one of the most open and stable economies in South America. With a population around 19.6 million people, Chile stands out for its high purchasing power per capita, transparent regulations, and solid infrastructure. The Chilean market is strongly driven by the modern retail sector, which is highly consolidated. The three largest supermarket groups, Cencosud with Jumbo and Santa Isabel, Walmart with Líder, and SMU with Unimark, together control the most of the country's food and beverage retail distribution. Over 95% of Chile's population lives in the Santiago metropolitan area, and consumers are generally receptive to imported products. especially when they are associated with quality, innovation, or health. The country has numerous free trade agreements, including one with the United States, which facilitates access to the market. Import processes are generally straightforward, and customs procedures are among the most efficient in the region. Chile's stable business environment and retail maturity make it an excellent entry point for U.S. exporters, especially those seeking long-term partnerships with major retail chains. Okay, let's talk about Colombia. Colombia is one of the fastest growing consumer markets in South America, with a population over 52 million people and a young urban demographic. In recent years, Colombia has experienced solid economic growth, accompanied by expansion of modern retail formats, particularly in urban areas like Bogotá, Medellin, and Cali. The retail landscape is diverse, combining traditional supermarket chains such as Grupo Éxito, Olímpica, or Al Costo, with the rapid growth of hard discount chains like De Uno, Ara, and Ísimo, all of which have significantly changed consumer shopping habits in the country. Consumers are becoming increasingly price sensitive, but they are also open to trying new imported products, especially when there is a balance of quality and affordability. Colombia has a free trade agreement with the United States, making it easier for U.S. exporters to enter the market. The country has sanitary regulations, so exporters should be prepared to comply with detailed registration and labeling requirements. Overall, Colombia represents a dynamic and expanding market, where U.S. companies that can adapt to consumer needs and navigate local procedures can find significant opportunities. Finally, let's take a look at Peru, a country that continues to show steady economic recovery and growth, with a population over 34 million people and increasing urbanization, particularly in Lima and coastal cities. Peru's food and beverage market is evolving quickly. In recent years, there has been a noticeable shift from traditional channels to modern retail, with supermarket chains like One, Metro, Totus, Macro, and Más expanding their presence across the country. While price sensitive is still high among Peruvian consumers, there is a growing interest in value-add and health-conscious products, especially among the middle class. Peru has a free trade agreement with the United States, which streamlines customs procedures and reduces tariffs for many U.S. goods. However, import documentation, labeling, and registration processes must be managed carefully to avoid delays. Peru offers attractive opportunities for exporters willing to develop long-term relationships with local partners in a market that's rapidly modernizing and looking for differentiated imported products. So that was about the general about market in the 4 countries, and I'd like to welcome Leonardo Silveira, who will guide you through the key trends, consumer behavior, and business opportunities surrounding private label in South America. His insights will provide a clear picture of how this segment is evolving and what exporters need to know to tap into this full potential. Thank you, Leo. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Natalia. Thank you, Danielle, and Sesta for the opportunity to speak to you all, and thank you for the audience that is in here. Also listening to this presentation, or seeing this presentation about private label opportunities. I believe private label will not only find opportunities in South America, but worldwide. And Sesta is here to assist any exporter, U.S. exporter of products for private label. We're going to focus here in South America because this is the region that we, as Natalia said, probably serve Sesta. But this is also an opportunity to understand worldwide. I would like you to give some examples. And before I get into that, I think we were able to see during Natalia's presentation that in South America, we have already a pretty established retail landscape. So Some countries are still getting in there, some are pretty well established, but it is growing in the metropolitan areas of the capital cities or in the largest cities. This is already pretty well established. And then it comes the opportunities for private label. These modernization of traditional channels to modern channels is something that has been growing throughout the region. So we have countries like Brazil, in which is already pretty established, the modern retail. Peru, which is getting there, not yet the entire country, but if we think about Lima, it's also pretty established. Um, and then we have those retail groups that are either managed by international companies from other countries, such as Europe or the US, or owned by those international companies, or even South American groups that works in multiple countries. This is what we have seen, and this allows for opportunities for private label not only for one country, but for multiple markets in the region. We're going to talk about those main private labels brands and how those work throughout the region. So I will start with Brazil. Okay, it is estimated that over a fifth of the retail sales in the major chains in Brazil, they are already private label. All of the major chains that Natalia showed in here, they already have their private label. We're going to see some of those examples in the next slides, okay? We see that consumers are planning to purchase more private label, and this is something interesting in Brazil, and that also happened in other countries in South America, but that was pretty strong in Brazil, the shift into consumer mindset about private label. They are, of course, when we first thought about private label, consumers were driven by price, but now they are getting more trust in quality. When we were talking about 20 years ago, or maybe more, private label was something in the region that it was a cheap product, not really good quality. And you would prefer, if you were looking for quality, to the international, some international brands or local brands, but those very well-established brands. And only if you were looking for economy, you would go into private label into the supermarkets. Nowadays, this has been changing over the region, and that was particularly strong in Brazil. And consumers are getting the sense that the private label is as good as a very well-known brand. These becomes opportunities also in this case for imported products into private label. And we'll see that in some of the South American countries, this is already a reality. Okay, so let's start with two cases in here by Grupo Pão de Açúcar in Brazil. I'm sorry, I think it was, let me go back in here. I'm sorry for that. Okay, so let's think in here about two cases, specifically about GPA, which is Grupo Pão de Açúcar in Brazil, and their private labels, Qualitá and Taek. Okay, Qualitá, it's their main private label around Pão de Açúcar and its other brands in Brazil, and Taek mainly for healthy wellness products. Okay, so Pão de Açúcar is owned by Casino Group from France, as well as Éxito in Colombia was in the past. So those are two private labels that we would see not only in Brazil, but also in Colombia, the same brand, specifically Taek. Okay, and we still see it in Colombia. So this is a case of a private label for a GPA in Brazil It's more upscale, and they use those private labels with high quality products that consumers will perceive as a good product, and you will only find in their stores or in the stores that make part of their group, such as Extra, which they are discontinuing, but you can still find those products in there. Also, Carrefour in Brazil. Nowadays, Carrefour is the largest retailer in terms of revenue. It's also a French company, French owned, operating into Brazil, and they have their assortment of private label. They have always had it since the beginning of the operations in Brazil, and they are getting it better year after year. Okay. Uh, Also, Sam's Club is in Brazil. This is something interesting. There is some kind of confusion sometimes because many of you may have heard that Walmart is not in Brazil anymore. And that's true. Walmart's not in Brazil. Walmart sold its operations to the same company that they've purchased these stores from. However, they've kept Members Mark in Brazil. And many of the Members Mark products are imported, some of them including from the US. So what we see here in Brazil from Members Mark, many of those products will be imported from the US and other countries also. Okay. So although Walmart's not in Brazil, Sam's Club, they still operate in Brazil and they have been growing. More recently, in the past couple of years, Sam's Club was purchased by Carrefour. So Carrefour, this company in here, this French company, purchased the operations for Sam's Club in Brazil right now. Then we have Açaí Atacadista. Açaí is a cash and carry. Nowadays, is in between the top three retailers or top three chains in Brazil. It's not really a retail. It started as wholesale, and then they've been into the cash and carry format, so they sell both wholesale and retail products. It's been very popular. Okay, they have their own private label brand. And Açaí is interesting because they have also a competitor, which is called Atacadão, which is managed by Carrefour in Brazil. So both of them are the two groups that compete. In the northeastern part of Brazil, there's also Grupo Mateus, which is pretty strong. It's not available in southern Brazil, but it's also one of the main supermarket chains in Brazil, operating in the northern part of Brazil. You have to understand that Brazil itself is larger than the contiguous USA. So if we do not consider Alaska, Brazil is larger than the USA. So it's a huge country, such as the US. And so there are differences in between the regions, such as in the US. So the larger differences are not like in the US into East and West Coast, but here into North and South, as Brazil is spread around from North to South. Okay. Also, another great example is what Dia Supermarkets did in Brazil. So Dia was a franchising company of supermarkets operating in Brazil. Many of their stores closed recently because of their management. It's a Spain operated. It's a Spanish group. It's from Spain, and now they're getting back into Brazil. But they've changed a lot into private label because they did very well designed packaging. So their private label brands, they were kind of funny. They play with the words of the products, and make small jokes with the words of the products. It's very colorful, as you can see it in this picture, examples of their private label. It's something that calls out attention of consumers. It's very well designed. So they did great with the private label and bringing to people the sensation of purchasing private label and showing that it's possible to um, have good products in the private label. They even had two lines of private label, one more premium and other one their main strain of private label. And they were sourcing also internationally those private labels, those private label products into the region. So this is also something very interesting what Dia brought into Brazil. Okay. Um, Now, moving up into Chile, this is a country which is pretty well established, the private label, and people are already used to. Consumers see it as a good price and quality ratio or alternative for their products. Um, Chileans are innovating in packaging, in a good presentation for their private label. Um, and also, there are local companies in Chile and distributors that are also looking into private label also inside Chile. As Natalia said, Chile is the most established country in South America in terms of economy. And also has one of the highest ranks into the easy of doing business into the region. Okay, so one of the first private labels I want to show you, and I have here two pictures to the left of the screen. You will see the products that are available in Chile. And if you see on the top left corner, you'll see the American flag in there for private label options in which imported from the US and branded as US also in Chile. It's their Cuisine & Co brand, okay, which is also available in other markets in which Cencosud operates, such as Peru, which we see on the right, okay? So in Chile, the images that we see in the left, they will be available in Jumbo, which is their more upscale stores, Santa Isabel, which is their more economy stores, and Speed, which is the convenience stores. And in Peru, we'll find those also in Wong and Metro, available also in the country. So it's the same brand available in two countries. And we're going to see in these slides ahead of us, also in Colombia. Okay, so this is one example of private label that goes into different countries around the region for those retail groups. Okay, now continuing, let's continue to talk about Chile and the Walmart in Chile, which is called Líder. So Walmart, when they got into Chile, they decided not to change the brand name Líder, which was already pretty well established into Chile. They offer great value, and I wanted to show you this is something that you all can check. Okay, if you get into Lider.cl. Líder Lider. I'm not sure if I can type in. I don't find here the chat screen, probably because I'm controlling the website. But later I'll write into the chat the website. But this is something you can check yourselves. Also, and if you type great value, you're going to be able to see those products come up to you. And I'm not sure if you are able to see here those round seals in all of those products. So you'll see a round circle. It's written Marcas Americanas, so American brands or American products, something like that. which shows that all of those products are imported from the USA. All of them are local brands, all of them imported from the USA. Um, and they sell under the great value in Chile. Okay. They also have the Leader store brand. And here you can see how to write Leader. So it would be leader.cl, the website. Here you can see the Leader brand. And what is the difference? Why do they have, in some of the supermarkets we're going to see in this presentation, they have those differences into private label? It's the type of public they will get into the supermarket. One of them, great value, more high end, and Leader, more economy. So it would be cheaper products overall. Those are mostly sourced uh, locally, okay? So they are from local manufacturers or distributors under the Leader brand, but there are exceptions. And here I'm showing you one exception of the brand Leader, but made in the USA. Okay. Also, Todos. Todos in Chile, it's a group that also operates in Peru, and we're going to see it. They also are very strong in private label. They even had to the right, you'll see a display only for their private label in their stores. And they have an assortment of high quality products over private label, in which some of them they also source internationally, including from the US. Okay, so also an opportunity in there. Now, getting into Colombia. So Colombia, it's something that I always say that it's the gateway to South America, not only because it has facility, it's geographically close to the US. We have facility entrance from the Atlantic and the Pacific. So there are seaports in both oceans. So it doesn't matter where you ship from, you'll find a way into Colombia. It is all about then you can take advantage of any shipping lines. So if you have shipping lines coming out from the East Coast, great. If you were railing your products or sending it by road to the West Coast and then going into the Pacific, because you have better shipping lines in there, you also have opportunities in Colombia. So this is very good. Also, we have been seeing growth in Colombia. And when we talk about private label, Colombia is pretty well established. We're going to see that some stores, they are focused on private label. And it's estimated that already 1/3 of the retail sales in Colombia, they are private label. And we're going to see there some examples of that. But Colombia is very interesting. Colombia has already like the regular retailers and also some discount stores that count into private label for their sales. Of course, discount stores are looking for price, and then Colombia is price sensitive. So many of those products are domestically produced just because they're looking for price on those discount stores. So here's one example. Grupo Éxito, that was once owned by Casino and GPA from Brazil, and it was a few years ago sold to a company from El Salvador. They still have available the TAEC brand in their stores in Colombia, not as many as it was before, but they still have it. And they also have, to the left and the right, you'll see some examples of a search result from products to the left called Econo, which is mainly their economy brand looking into hard discounts. To the right, their main brand Éxito, which is the same name of the supermarket, and some of those products are the same, and they will have in Econo and Éxito. And also, they have a new brand, Frescampo, which is mostly sourcing local products in Colombia, but it's bringing those that sensation up, or that perception of quality into private label, into those groups in Colombia. So this is very interesting. Remember, I told you about Cencosud in Chile that they have their cuisine in Col. It's the same in Colombia. They use the same brand in there also for their jumbo stores in Colombia as well as in Peru and so on. Then we have Tiendas Ara. They private label dominates their sales. So most of what they sell, it's private label, and they will have private label for everything. And this is interesting. If you look to the some of those brands, they are pretty similar in color or format, but they will have a series of private labels for its product. Some products will have more than one uh, brand to it. And they will have their private labels for snacks, for meats, for bakeries, such as this one in the center, Amapan, um, for groceries in general. So this is something interesting. It's a store looking pretty much into private label. But again, this is the same case as the Uno in Colombia, Tiendas de Uno, which will go more into uh, price. Okay, Colombia is already a price sensitive market, although we see uh, a a part of the population, especially when we're talking about young couples that don't have kids, that they look into investing into more premium products. But overall, Colombia is a price sensitive market. However, with a free trade agreement with the US and geographically uh, close. So if you have a good export condition or good export pricing, this is a market that you definitely should look into. Um, Also, El Costo, they also do the same thing. They have their main brand, El Costo and K, which will bring more premium products into the mix of products that they have. And we go into Peru. Peru has been growing into modern retail. So Peru is a case that yet, if we consider countrywide, more than 50% of the sales is still in the traditional channel. But this is changing and changing fast. Okay. And while the modern channel changes, and in Lima, they are already, which is the capital city and largest city, it's already pretty present. While these changes also it brings private label opportunities. And then we were talking about Wong and Metro, which is part of Chilean Cencosud, Todos, which is also a Chilean uh, company. Then the largest Peruvian company for retail, which is Supermercados Peruanos, they also have it. And then Macro, which is wholesale. Um, so groceries, beverages, and snacks are growing. And again, it's the same trend that started in Brazil. Quality with good pricing, and this is what supermarkets are doing. So let's start with the Peruvian retailer, Supermercados Peruanos, which will have their main brand, which is Bells, that they have an assortment of products over Bells. Then we have some cases like La Florencia, which is more into fresh products, bakery and all. Then Balance, which is more into health and care or personal care. And Boreal, which is more into cleaning or also some personal care. Then Todos, it's the same case as in their headquarters in Chile. They are very strong into private label, and they do it all in Peru. Again, also, this is a brand that imports their private labels also. They source internationally. It's important to remember that Chile, Colombia, Peru, they all have free trade agreements with the US. So we have facilitated entry into those countries. And I would like to bring here one wholesale brand, but more focused into food service, which is Aro. It, it is one of the first private labels brands in the region. It's from Macro, and Macro also had stores like in Brazil, for example. This brand has been going on since 1981. And what is interesting about this brand is that food service companies, they or small restaurants or independent restaurants, they would purchase a macro. And we would see some packagings in Brazil, in Peru, when we would go to a restaurant, we would see the brand Aro, such as in ketchups, mayos, or other products that would come to the table with especially sauces and condiments, or maybe salt, sugar, that would come to the table for the consumers and would have the brand Aro. So this is also, although it's made for food service mainly, this is not as uncommon to consumers also. So this is interesting, and this has shows how long we're talking, for over 40 years, in which we have private label brands going on into South America. So, with that panorama, I hope you could have a sense of what is private label in the region, and I'll be open up to any questions we may have. Thank you very much for staying with us in here. I see a great participation. Thank you, Danielle, with you. I cannot hear you, Danielle. Yep.
Darn, sorry about that. Thank you so much, Leonardo and Natalia. Great presentation. And we do have several questions, so let's get started on those and keep the questions coming. We definitely have time. The first one is, I'm curious what the popularity of plant-based proteins is like there.
Okay, so this is interesting. Yes, there is. All of those private labels, specifically when we talk, for example, about TAEC, that is in Brazil and Colombia, they have plant-based proteins in their portfolio of products for private label. So this is something interesting in the region. It's important to understand that there's also some companies in the region that are very strong into plant-based, not only the Future Burger, but there's also a Chilean company called Notco that they have all sorts of plant-based products that could be mayonnaise, ice cream, or any kinds of plant-based products. Also, all of those countries, and this is important, all of those countries, they have nutritional labeling legislations. So it's what we call the stop signs. So those are black signs that are in the front panel of the products. If you're used to Mexican products, you probably have seen those already, because this is also reality in Mexico. Um, this is not really a great problem for private label, because as you design your packaging along with your client, with the retailer or distributor down here, these will be already thought of when designing the packaging. But this is something that it's all around and just reinforces that plant-based scenario in here. Another thing that it's getting really strong, I know it's already strong in the US, it's getting really strong in here. It's when we talk about those diet medications like Ozempic or Mounjaro, that they shift a little bit the consumer pattern of the people down here in into more protein products, and people that start using those treatments, they change a little bit actually they change a lot the way that they consume foods, and of course private label will be accompanying that trend.
Okay, thank you. We had several questions come in about alcohol, wine and spirits, liquor.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so they are. This is interesting why I didn't show it. Yes, they are. So if we think about, for example, Tienda Sara in Colombia, they do have uh, a session all about liquors and all sorts of whiskeys, wines, beers, all sorts of alcoholic beverages. I didn't mention pretty much about it because they are more into economy. They're more into price. And then we would have a disadvantage from the US. If we were talking about Colombia, then it could work well because we have the facility of geographically, Colombia is a country that imports already a lot when we're talking about liquors, when we're talking about alcoholic beverages, there will be already opportunities into that. Uh, but this is the thing. So far, it's only into economy brands usually. When we're talking about international economy products, usually. When we talk about international products for liquors and uh, still spirits, beers, wines, usually those are branded. So if we think about maybe Brazil, that wouldn't work really well. If we think of Colombia, it could work for private label for alcoholic beverages. Uh, but this is growing. So what I would recommend is watch out. Still, South America is a relationship-based society. So there's a lot of conversation that must go on. So I would encourage you to start um, talking about those opportunities down here. As the market evolves, certainly there will be opportunities in the near future, more opportunities than nowadays for alcoholic beverages.
Okay, great. Thank you. And a question about private label coffee. Is there any demand for that?
Okay, so in South America, there are two of the main coffee producers in the world. So we're talking about Brazil and Colombia.
Mm.
So coffee itself, it's very hard to sell into South America because I have pretty large competitors down here. However, what there is not much production in here is coffee beverages than when we're talking about caramel macchiato ready to drink, something
Mm.
that we find pretty easily in the US on Starbucks, for example. Um, and it's getting traction in here. Now we see that Nestle is launching some products in that sense. We also see some caffeine beverages, so milk and coffee beverages with flavors also here and there in some private label, not only private labels, but also in private label coming. So if we're talking about coffee, only like the beans or ground bean coffee, it's pretty difficult because of the competition down here. If we're talking about other products, then yes, definitely.
Okay. And then, so we're talking about all the specific industries now. Dog and cat food or treats. What is the private label market for that?
Sure. So yes, there are opportunities for those. Again, Tienda Sara in Colombia, they have their brand for pet food. Colombia is a pretty interesting market for pets. I'm not sure if you've ever been to Bogota, for example, but this is something that calls attention of any tourists in Bogota. The amount of people walking their dogs around the streets and the amount of dogs that there will be, dogs and cats actually, there will be in Bogota. So this is very interesting, and the amount of people that have dogs and cats in this region. I have mine in here right besides me while I speak. So there is also in Brazil, there are some pet stores. So there are chains of pet stores that they are all around Brazil. The two largest ones are Cobasi and Pets. And they all have their private label brands and they import. Okay, Brazil is already a very large manufacturer of dog and cat food. However, there are opportunities, and what they import are treats. So then you will find opportunities for dog and cat treats for a private label in Brazil under those specialized stores.
Great. Um, okay, I'm not seeing any other questions come in. Um, yeah, I think that might be it.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Again, if anybody has any questions, so I'll include here. Let me see. Oh, there it is. We have the email susta@riverglobal.net that you can send us the questions. And I would like also to mention, Danielle, if you may, SUSTA offers a service of virtual consultation. I think this is pretty interesting for whoever wants to learn more about your products into South America. So this is a pretty easy registration into SUSTA's website, and you can have a 30-minute conversation with me, Natalia, or both of us. Um, about your products in here, so you should take advantage of that. And I would like to mention also that there will be, especially for those who are looking into the Chilean market, Susta is offering a great opportunity at Espacio Food and Service. This is the main food show in Chile, receiving also buyers from Argentina, Uruguay, Peru. So the neighboring countries. And then that show will receive both food service and retail buyers. All of the largest distributors of imported products, they go into there, and some of those distributors, as I've mentioned in Chile, they start to work with private label themselves, and they want to have their own private label options. And also all of the main retailers, they also visit the show. So this is a great opportunity. If you're thinking about the Chilean market, this is a great opportunity. And I must say, as I've said in the beginning of this presentation, that we're talking about South America because we're here in South America. Um, but I'm sure there are opportunities for private label around the world, and Susta is here to assist any company looking. If your company is specialized in private label, take advantage of those resources that Susta offers to the US companies.
Absolutely. Thank you. And yes, the deadline to register for Espacio, be in Cesta's Pavilion at Espacio, is July 1st. So that's next Tuesday. So thank you, Leo, for mentioning that. We do still have a few booths available. And it is very affordable. I think a booth in our pavilion is maybe $575. So, if Chile is at all of interest, it's a great show, and it is September 30th to October 2nd. So, yes, just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Thank you. And then we did have one more question come in if we still have time. And this is for the retailers with operations in different countries. What would be a better approach? Contact the corporate buyer or begin with a local buyer?
That's a very good question, and it depends on the retailer. So if you're talking, for example, about TAEG, even when Éxito was still part of Casino before being sold to the El Salvadorian company, they would source it in both in both countries, Colombia and Brazil, that would serve for both countries also. If we're talking about totals, typically they do it all in their headquarters in Chile, that then goes into Peru also. So there is not a single answer. It depends on each retailer and how they operate. And even those retailers, and this is something interesting, even if you don't have a private label brand, for example, if you get into Cencosud, they still have their local purchasers in each country. Of course, it's facilitated once you were selling into one country, it facilitates you selling into the others because you got into the system already. But it's case by case. It's brand by brand.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that is everything. Yes, and as Leonardo mentioned, if you do have questions that and you would like to speak with River Global, please do register for a consultation. I'll send a follow-up email that has a link to Espacio as well as the consultations, and the recording of the webinar will be up in our past webinars page either later today or tomorrow. So thank you very much for the wonderful presentation, and thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you on another webinar soon. Great. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Bye.